Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Very excited today. Happy to have you joining us for another awesome financial brand webinar. My name is Christina Baker. I am with the Director of Strategy with SilverTech. So excited to welcome everyone and for this to be a great session. We're here today with some wonderful ladies. We've got a great presentation that's going to cover a lot of information. I think you guys are going to leave with some really great ideas and hopefully feeling really energized about all that you can achieve with your DXP. And I don't want to wait any longer. I know we're already a few minutes just sort of letting people kind of filter in. If you are, sort of sitting there and just, filtering in with us, please put in the chat where you're joining us from. Would love to know what the weather's like in your area and where you're coming from, because we've got an awesome show today. And I definitely want to bring in everyone from all over so we can see where everyone is coming from. And I hope that the chat is very active and we get a really great interactive session. As we're going, please be sure to drop those questions in the Q&A, because we will be looking through the Q&A at the end of the session and answering your questions so that you can get the most out of our session today. So without further ado, let's get started. Again, very happy to be here. My name is Christina Baker. I am the Director of Strategy at SilverTech. I'm joined today by these amazing professional women, and I'm going to toss it over to Lindsay for your quick intro.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Mora. I'm Digital Marketing Team Lead also at SilverTech. I'll hand it over to you, Misty.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Misty Ford. I'm the Corporate Marketing Director at HomeStreet Bank, and I've been with the bank just shy of 5 years.
Thanks, Misty.
And I think I'm next. My name's Heather Burby, and I'm the Sales Engineering Manager here at Progress for Sitefinity.
Excellent. Awesome. Excellent panel today. We're going to hear a lot about omnichannel marketing, DXP capabilities, and we've got some really great ideas that we've all been working on, and we've got some thoughts on to share with you all. So hopefully, again, you'll leave really feeling energized with some actionable insights going forward. So for our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit through omnichannel marketing, leveraging your digital experience platform, how you can make the most out of that investment. We're going to go through how to optimize your campaigns using data, as well as personalization strategies and how does data inform those. And then Misty and Lindsay are going to really take you through HomeStreet Bank's success story. This is a great story you're not going to want to miss. And then finally, we're going to talk through some best practices and what does it look like in the future. Then we'll hit up those key takeaways and we'll do your Q&A. So packed agenda today, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Lindsay, I'm going to turn it over to you for what is omnichannel marketing.
Awesome. Thanks, Christina. So yeah, I think it's a good place to start is really defining what we're talking about when we talk about omnichannel marketing. So essentially, that's when we're creating a seamless experience for your customers across multiple channels, right? The omnichannel piece. And with that is like the consistent brand messaging and any personalization as well that goes into that. So some of the key elements here for approach is, creating that unified customer journey, data-driven decision-making, which is something we're going to talk about a lot here, platform-specific strategies. So again, how do we create that omni-channel, that very diverse network of channels to reach the right people and engage with them in a meaningful way? And then that continuous optimization is a really key piece here. So now that we've defined what it is, let's talk a little bit about why it even matters. Like, why are we here today? And I always talk about, and for years, it's always been this rule of 7 when it comes to marketing. And that means that people typically need to see your messaging from your brand at least 7 times before making a decision. Now, of course, this isn't the same exact 7 pieces of content, right? Or the same types of messaging or the same 7 ad formats over and over again. It's different messaging aligned with your brand, different ad formats, different types of delivery systems and a way of delivering that information to people. But ultimately, they need to see that a few different times to be able to really end up making a decision. And that's because 73% of consumers use multiple multiple channels throughout their user journey. So they're not going to just convert the first time, right? The first time they see that message. And that's why we always need to have many of these different touch points. And those customers do engage across multiple channels. They end up having a much higher lifetime value, 30% higher. So the more that we can engage with them across multiple channels and in many different ways, we have a much higher likelihood of having that higher lifetime value. And then personalized experiences throughout that journey can then boost conversions by 20%. I mean, obviously, we all know in the marketing world, or when you get ads that are just entirely irrelevant to you, that's not going to entice you. And it's when we can connect the dots and create that personalized experience, it really goes a long way in driving that conversion. So next, we want to just take a quick poll and kind of see, where you all are at. So what channel drives the most engagement for your business? So we laid out a few options here: social media, email marketing, paid advertising. That could be Google Ads, social media, any sorts of online advertising, or maybe it's organic search, just driving organic traffic or SEO efforts to your site.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna be really interested in these answers, Lindsay. I think that it's so interesting how different channels can work, even through different industries. And then even just geographically, it's really when you think about demographics and the sort of makeup of your audience, it really impacts the channels that you choose and have success with.
Very interesting. So it looks like email is the
Email is
lead.
not dead.
Even advertising and like just organic social is tied. Although some people might have been thinking like paid ads on social as well, which totally counts. So, and organic search is in there too. So definitely a good mix, which I like to see, and I'm going to talk about.
That's awesome. Yeah, great results. So let's talk about leveraging your digital experience platform. This one is really great. I think that, we talked through, Heather, did you want to talk through some of our DXP capabilities?
Sure. So with Sitefinity as a DXP, we provide a lot of different capabilities, centralized content management, so the ability to manage all your content from a easy to use location, where you don't have to be a developer to do it. You can be a marketing expert who can go in and then create personalized messaging without having to rely on your developers to do so. We also have behavioral data collection. So going beyond just content management, we want to start to understand how people are interacting with that content that we're creating. So being able to track user behavior and interactions across your site, but also across other channels in that omni-channel environment that people are interacting with you through is important, so that you can start to collect that information, understand your audience, and then use that information to drive your campaigns. And so providing the ability to do campaign automation, also very important. So being able to pull out a group of visitors coming to your site who you might want to generate an email campaign for based on their interests or maybe where they are in their funnel, also very important. So giving you the ability to do that. And personalization engine. So again, with Sitefinity, a marketing person can go in, they can create a series of different messaging based on different interests, different behaviors, different strategies, so that they can really tailor that message to getting the information that is going to appeal to the right people at the right time, all within the same pages. So again, I can create 2 or 3 different personalizations on that same piece of content based on what my audience segments might look like. And then SEO tools. So being able to go in and make sure you're applying the right information to your content, to make sure that your information is getting indexed through any type of search engines that might be out there to get that information out. So when we talk about organic searches and that type of thing, that's going to be able to leverage that information to really get your information out there without having people come directly to your site, but do it through their searches, for instance, on search engines. And so again, it all matters because, with the Sitefinity DXP, we really help you unify your data and deliver personalized experience. So again, we go beyond CMS, content management, and provide that holistic strategy for you. So being able to understand not only how you can manage your content and put that content out there, but understanding how people are interacting, understanding how you can actually track the performance of the content that you're putting out there, and providing consistent experiences across all channels. So again, with Sitefinity, CMS in combination with Sitefinity Insight, which is our CDP, we're able to track all that information. And with Sitefinity Insight, it doesn't just work with your website. It works across all the channels that you work with to capture information and interactions, but also to deliver information like, hey, what user segment does somebody belong to? So that then we can provide that personalization out in those other channels as well.
Yeah, it's such a great point, Heather. I think a lot of us, we think about our website as a CMS and only a CMS, and that's really not how it is now. I mean, these platforms are so powerful and have such capabilities to be able to really extend to all kinds of channels, and again, collect the data from those channels, interaction data, and really give us something to measure against when we're looking to measure ROI. I mean, it's a persistent struggle for anyone in marketing, and I think that's really a key takeaway is that we're thinking through like this. Don't think of your CMS as just a CMS anymore, because these platforms are so powerful, and Sitefinity especially has so many capabilities that we really want to make sure we're taking advantage of the most that the platform has to offer.
That's right.
So let's take a poll. What do you think is the status of your current website? How do you feel about your website? Do you think it's kind of a basic CMS? There's minimal sort of option and functionality there. Do you have some integration? Maybe you're operating something that's a full digital experience platform with personalization and automation. You've been to so many of these webinars that you're like, I'm going to do this right now. Would love to hear about that too. And definitely share some thoughts in the chat as well as the poll. Would love to keep the conversation going. I think we're going to have really interesting answers here. We see, industry data around websites and digital within financial institutions. And I think it shows that there's still a little bit of struggle for adoption. And that's where, engaging a digital partner can really help guide you along that process. But very interested to see your answers on this one, because I really think we have some varying experiences. Awesome. Let's take a look at those results. Looks like we've got, a good CMS, good foundation with some integration for marketing analytics, and then, below that, it looks like people are kind of struggling with maybe a more basic CMS with minimal personalization. That can be a struggle. And I get that. It's, there's a lot that goes into upgrading your CMS. There's a lot that goes into a personalization strategy. And hopefully by the end of today, you'll be feeling more confident to tackle those types of initiatives.
Right. Now, when we're talking about setting a strategy, like those of you who are saying, like, you're kind of at the basic level of your CMS, so you might be at the beginning stages of kind of thinking about this omni-channel approach. First and foremost with anything is like really setting what your goals are. And there's a few reasons why this is so important. Making sure it's aligned with your overall business objectives, might be brand awareness, lead generation, customer engagement and retention. And this may vary by different like sub-services or products. And I'll talk about that a little bit with HomeStreet. But once you've determined those goals, then you can best optimize and track success. And like I said, this may vary. You may have overarching goals overall, and then you may have individual goals by different, service lines or whatever it may be. But one of the reasons that a lot of people don't even consider with defining these goals, it seems like kind of an obvious, but from an advertising perspective, it's really important to set up your campaigns with those goals in mind so that you're tracking the correct conversions and you're sending those proper signals back to the ad channel so that you can make the right optimizations based on that conversion point, right? So just for example, I mean, Google Ads, there's different bidding strategies. So if you're telling Google, my goal is awareness, it's going to optimize to get as many impressions as possible. But if your goal is conversion based, then it's going to optimize to get not just impressions or clicks, but who is most likely to convert. So those signals back to the ad channels across the board, not just to Google, that's just an example, is really important for the optimizing of this. And this is Misty, where we've done a lot of work with HomeStreet on this. We have a lot of campaigns running with you all, and some are focused on conversions, where we're tracking, form submissions are very actionable things on the website, whether it's for commercial banking is one that comes to mind, but then we also do brand awareness. And so that's more, obviously the impression and the impression share focus in terms of metrics. But I think that's where we've really worked together, Misty, in terms of determining what those goals are together and, how that may vary by different campaigns.
Yeah, and I think that, one of the things that a mistake to avoid is to ensure that you are tracking something. You need to make sure that you identify what is your key metric. And one of the things that I like to do, one of the things I did when I initially joined HomeStreet was to work with the team to say, okay, what, let's begin with the end in mind. What is it that we want our audience to do when we set up a campaign? And so that might be open a checking account online. It might be to get in touch with a commercial relationship manager, or it might be for some of you to have a phone call to talk about an auto loan. So thinking about that from the very beginning and starting there and then working out. So start from the inside and work out. And then that way your campaign strategy is dialed in to that ultimate action that you want your audience to take.
Yeah, it's a great point too, Misty, because it's also, then what is the translation on the website? Like what are the CTA buttons, and then what's the data that's being gathered in the back end or not? So I really like that approach of like kind of thinking, and working backwards on that, but making sure it is defined and it's not just, open-ended.
Yeah, I think the other point would be that if you don't have that and you don't define which data element you're going to track, then the tools can't work for you. They can't optimize on your behalf. And so if you don't have data, then the data can't work for you. So again, making sure that you think clearly what is your defined metric.
So we have another poll in here. I know a lot of polls, and we love to kind of get some
Love
engagement
the
from
polls.
the audience here. Yeah, don't worry, there's not too many. There's the right balance. But wanted to hear from you all what your primary goal is. So like I said, there can be varying goals, but just like overarching, what are you ultimately trying to do with, all of your digital marketing campaigns? Is it brand awareness? Is it lead generation, customer retention and loyalty, or increasing revenue? And I understand there might be a few of these, but try to pick one that's like most dominant for you.
That's a great question, Lindsay. Do you have just a single goal for a campaign, or can you have multiple goals for a campaign? Do you have like a primary goal and a secondary goal?
Yeah, you could definitely can do that. And also, when setting up campaigns, kind of the nitty gritty of the back end, you can set like a primary conversion point, and maybe that is the like opening an account and the submission for that, or mortgage application submission. And then you might have a secondary goal of like someone clicking on the CTA button. So kind of like a softer conversion point, if you will.
Mm,
So yeah, you can definitely have multiple goals. Looks
nice.
like overwhelmingly lead generation, and then increasing revenue. So I think those go hand in hand, right? And then the ROI of that, making sure that cost per lead is effective for you all as well. And then brand awareness and customer retention is also in there.
Love it. Varying goals.
All right, so now we're going to talk about, we've talked a lot about data and how it's in different systems. So how can we optimize campaigns? So much like what I mentioned earlier with setting up goals, it's really important for campaigns that you set up the data properly so you're capturing on it and can actually make informed decisions from it. And part of that is setting up UTMs, which will allow you to track different touch points, not only from your marketing campaign, but all the way through to the website, right? We're talking about this digital experience all the way through the CMS, and that allows you to kind of connect the dots on your data, right? Because there's data in your ad channels, there's data in your Google Analytics, there's data in the CMS or DXP platform that you're working within, and how can you align all of that information together about your customers and make more strategic marketing decisions? Then you can analyze patterns, like what channels are driving the most conversions, optimize based on that, audience demographics, what content people are consuming. So really valuable information that then you can take action on. And Missy, one campaign that comes to mind for me is commercial banking. We were when we first launched this, we launched on LinkedIn and Google,
Mhm.
and we wanted to kind of like get the information out there. So it was a little bit of a brand awareness play, although the main goal was to get conversions and have people fill out a form to
Right.
talk to somebody. But we did get good brand awareness from the LinkedIn platform, and it has kind of more targeting capabilities in terms of reaching certain industries, which was a focus for you all, certain companies. But then what we saw after a few months of testing and gathering that data is that LinkedIn was not driving any direct conversion. So it worked for us from an awareness standpoint, but not for direct conversion. So we then reallocated the budget to Google search. So I think that's a good example in terms of like, you know, we set up the campaign to be able to track and gather that information. And, you know, then we made some other informed decisions after running it for a period of time.
Yeah, yeah. And again, our key conversion metric was the form fill. And so from there, then we would track the lead with our commercial relationship managers. And so it was definitely a learning opportunity for us. And it was interesting that we didn't get more of a lift from LinkedIn. But that's what the data can do. And if you don't track it, you don't know. And so we were able to adjust and iterate. And I think we did do that, and it's proving to work better for us to have that campaign be primarily because of our metric being conversion, to have it primarily be through Google search.
Yeah. And another area I want to mention too, in terms of like gathering data, is like working with your team. Like we would have regular touch base meetings on that campaign specifically, talk to your commercial banking teams to just understand lead flow, lead quality. And then we would
Right.
make adjustments to the campaign based on that kind of like soft data. It's kind of anecdotal information from that team in terms of, and then we would make optimizations like, okay, we can fine tune our keywords if we're seeing a couple irrelevant leads or leads that just maybe not irrelevant, but not a great fit for the bank. So I think there's also that kind of soft data that is helpful to inform optimizations.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably worth noting that, I mean, as a bank, we target primarily based on geo-targeting, based on the locations and to ensure that we reach our full audience. So, again, because we do want to make sure that we're extending our brand beyond, within the footprint in which we operate.
That makes sense.
Great. And then talking about channels specifically. So, you know, determining the right media mix, it's really important to understand that not all channels are the same, right? They all have their own purpose and they all have a really unique role to play. And they're actually most effective when they run in tandem. So remember that earlier stat when we talked about, you know, customers who engage across multiple channels have a higher lifetime value. So, you know, to a degree, as much as you can mix in those different touch points, again, like 7 different messaging touch points, and they don't all have to be ads. They can be other types of messaging like email and other avenues. But just keeping that in mind can really deliver higher value. So, you know, a search engine like a Google or a Bing, you know, there are people out there who use Bing. You know, obviously that's low funnel. You can reach those high intent people who are actively searching for you, your products, your services. And as we mentioned with HomeStreet and the example with commercial banking, it usually is the highest driver of those direct conversions. But those other channels do help kind of bring in those people, and then they often will convert through search. So then there's social media and display networks. Those can reach people much higher up in their journey. So they might not be ready to convert right away, but you're putting that messaging out in front of them. You know, again, that rule of 7. And then there's video and audio. So other avenues like streaming TV ads. So basically any TV ad that's on a streaming network. Digital radio, Spotify, Pandora. Obviously, these are high funnel that help generate awareness. And they can be really useful because they have more advanced targeting parameters than sometimes you can leverage in Google. So you can really hone in on the most relevant people and still be like completely compliant in the financial services space because we deal with that a lot. And so it's really important to utilize all these different tactics and test out, you know, I would definitely consider your delivery network when it comes to display or CTV, connected TV campaigns, because depending on that delivery network, there's different DSPs out there that have different tracking capabilities. So I would definitely focus on one that has good tracking capabilities. There's ones like StackAdapt and AdTheorent and the Trade Desk, many of those kind of high level ones that will offer that tracking so that you're not just putting ads out there in the CTV network and not knowing what's happening. Again, we really want to understand the data there. And this is another area, Misty, that we've tested a lot with you, and HomeStreet overall has tested over the years in terms of what that channel mix looks like. And it's all about testing, right? I think prior years, you were running more advertising in Facebook, iHeartRadio, we've mentioned LinkedIn, and
Hmm.
now we're kind of more in the programmatic display native. We've done connected TV with you. Obviously, Google's always kind of like Google search is the backbone. So I would say for Home Street, you guys have a really healthy mix and kind of reaching people with those different types of formats and different ad messaging.
Yeah, and I would also add that I mean, sometimes you can change your strategy depending upon what's going on outside. And so, for example, in our home loan campaign last year, we were really more of the top of mind brand awareness strategy because interest rates were high. Then, as we get into this year with the upcoming spring activity hike spike that we expect to see, we're shifting our conversion metric. So we're switching metrics based on what's going on in the industry, based upon what's going on in the business. And again, I think it's important to know that you have those levers as marketers that you can work with.
Yeah, totally. The other thing I'll say about channel selection too is sometimes we have some clients who are a little hesitant on that diverse mix and they want to stick to just like the Google search or like something that's tried and true. And like Missy's saying, you need to test and, test other avenues and see what might work for your unique audience, your unique brand. And I also tell people, like, as a reminder, people have a life outside of that particular product that they might be in market for, right? Like they're not just like their whole life is consumed by like, what CD am I opening today? Or like, am I going to change my bank or not? Like they do have a life, they're on social media. So it is helpful for that more like passive brand
Hmm.
engagement because like instead of just the hard sell of like, let's just reach those lower funnel people, let's also like remind people of who you are all throughout their journey as just like a human being, right? We're all living online in a lot of ways. So,
So we don't need to
Agreed.
clobber them over the head 7 times.
right. No.
Good tip.
Right. And, we're talking about testing, finding that right omni-channel approach that will work for you and your unique business really requires that testing that Missy has talked about. Now, this can be very controlled testing. Maybe it's literally an A/B test, but sometimes it's also, just things like call to action buttons, messaging on your site, headlines in your ads, make sure that those are being switched out, imagery, ad channels that you're using. We've talked a lot about channel mix and testing that. It can also be the placement of the form on the website. So, and as Misty has said, this could change over time. Like what worked today may not work tomorrow, and vice versa. You just have to always be looking at that data again and kind of making those decisions, refreshing things. So definitely that testing is a really important piece. And as you heard us say, we've tested many different channels over the years with HomeStreet to find that really effective audience with like different mixes like Facebook and Google, but we've also done testing like on the site, again, with messaging, CTA placement, that commercial banking campaign, just constantly looking at that landing page and that experience and how can we make sure that that form is converting people. So just always looking at that data to see how we can best optimize towards it.
Yeah, I think the one key point to bring out with A/B testing is you really only want to test one component at a time because otherwise, if you test too many things, you're not going to know what is working and what's not working. So, for example, change the headline. That's it. Leave it alone for a period of time and see what works and see what happens with the data. You need to have enough time there to really see what goes on with the data. Um, and put a stake in the ground when you do that. And then 3 months later, do it again and see what happens.
Yeah.
So really important to make sure that that's, one test at a time.
Yeah, and it's a good point, Misty, because the other thing too with you have to also give it time to kind of breathe
Right.
and let the market respond. Because sometimes, like especially with these Google algorithms or any ad channel, they usually say give it at least 2 to 3 weeks. And I say even like 4 to 6 weeks, especially if you're changing out ad messaging or display ads, let the audience respond to that before you start aggressively making other changes to your campaign. And then, like Missy said, you don't know if it was the messaging or the optimizations, in the back end that you made to the campaign that had that impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the fun part, right? Like that's partly why we all got into this biz in the first place, is like being able to see what works and what doesn't and what those tweaks can be. And I think that, that's really, to me, that's a lot of the fun part, is that data that comes back and being able to make those optimizations and see how the change plays out in the actual outcomes of the campaign.
Yeah, and I mean sometimes over the years, a team member might not want to share a really bad result
Mhm.
because they don't want it to reflect perhaps their work. Well, actually, that's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to learn to say, "Oh, you know what? This did not work. And therefore, we're going to swap this out and go to the next thing." So, I mean, don't be afraid of trial and error. That's what makes us better. Sometimes our mistakes make it even better.
Yeah, such a great point, Misty.
And also part of this omni-channel approach, and many of you said SEO is part of that, which is music to my ears, because I've talked a lot about advertising up to this point, but I want to remind you all, it's really important to balance the paid and non-paid tactics. Because, leveraging SEO can be really valuable, right? You bringing in as much organic traffic as you can, and getting as much of kind of that free visibility, although it does take a lot of time and resources. But what we did with HomeStreet is kind of in tandem with all these campaigns that we're mentioning, and advertising efforts that we're doing. We're also constantly looking at how are we ranking organically for the keywords, that we want to go after that are important for the HomeStreet brand, but also keywords that we're actually bidding on, and constantly looking at, okay, how can we move the mark on these keywords to rank better organically so that we don't have to pay as much for them, the ad market, or maybe there's no competition on those keywords and we could just pull back entirely because we're ranking so well. So just constantly looking at that and just not forgetting about that organic SEO piece and optimizing towards that as well. Over time, when we were doing this with HomeStreet, and I say over time, we know SEO can take a long time, and I think we started to see these results between a 3 and 6 month time frame for HomeStreet, where we increased the traffic value that we were getting to the site by 933%.
Come on,
So
Lindsay, say
really
that
moving.
again. Say that again. That's
That's very
3 to 6
impressive.
months.
Yeah, it's awesome because then we've actually, we don't need to, spend for certain keywords that, we're just ranking so well organically. So there's just, obviously we want to bring in as much of that traffic as you can. And the search landscape has changed. I don't deny that. There's those AI responses in there. So organic definitely holds its value, but it's also competing against the AI response and sponsored ads and all of that. But I just want to emphasize that you don't need to pay to play, right? You can also optimize your site, and it's really important to do that from an SEO perspective.
And I think too, for those of you that might have content managers on your team, to make sure that they understand the importance of titles and meta tags, and making sure that the pictures, if there's pictures in the educational article that you're posting, that there's a tag there that talks about the picture. Those things are really important. And as a writer, sometimes they don't think about that. And so making sure they understand the power of the content management system and the tags that are available to them to help drive the SEO, because you can save a lot of money if you're getting SEO versus paying for it.
And you
Good
can
point.
save a lot of time if you don't have to fix those problems later. It's much more efficient if
Yes.
people, know those best practices and are implementing on it on a regular basis.
Wow, that's kind of blown me away. That's amazing. I think there's, it's such an important call out that, there's so many pieces to the pie, right? There's so many puzzle pieces here that we put together to really create this omni-channel type experience. And part of that is personalization. And we see that personalization is consistently linked in the industry with higher leads, higher customer satisfaction, greater impact on revenue, wallet share. I mean, there's really no downside here. And yet we still see people are kind of nervous about it. And I think that there's really no need to be nervous. You can start at a very small level when it comes to personalization by just using things like the behavioral tracking that's available and using just personalizing based on user interactions on the site. If someone has visited the checking account page, can we personalize for them so that when they come back to the website, they see our latest checking promotion? I think it's really interesting because when we do these types of things, we really set ourselves apart from competitors in order to be able to really target the right person at the right time. Because in addition to that the 7 times we want to put ourselves in front of someone, one of those times needs to be the right time for them to take action. And that's partly why we see that advice repeated so much throughout the industry. Localized personalization is something that we've been working through a little bit. It's not quite fully integrated yet, but I think what's really important here and what I would like to kind of drive home is linking your UTM tracking with campaigns to map those customer journeys. So within Sitefinity Insight, we are able to personalize based on the UTM tracking of our campaigns. So what this does is it allows us to see, okay, you know what, maybe, going back to our goals, if our primary goal is lead acquisition and maybe this person didn't submit in a form, well, where did they go next? If we see traffic consistently going to one or two resources that perhaps answer a question or provide more information, that can give us great data to then look at, okay, well, maybe we need to tweak our messaging here to account for some of these obstructions to someone wanting to submit a form and convert with us.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. As we get into the slides that I'll be doing, there's a lot of different ways that you can track information within Sitefinity Insight. So again, you're not tied to what we do standardly. We work with Google Tag Manager, we work with UTM parameters. So there's a lot that you can do. And the nice thing is it aggregates all that information from all those channels that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's partly, why Sitefinity Insight is such a great tool and really powerful when it comes to managing your omni-channel presence. So, we talk about what's next in personalization. We really want to look at expanding the use of personalization. We work with our clients like HomeStreet to implement things like personalized CTAs based on those interactions and aligning our campaign insights with those customer segments. If you've ever been to one of my webinars or you've ever heard me speak on personalization before, I was working with a financial institution a little while ago. We had created a campaign that was meant to target mortgage or I'm sorry, we were meant to target first time like account openers, recent college grads. And what we found is that we had this sort of segment emerge of these recent college grads who were very interested in mortgage information. So it was really interesting to see that data come through. And now suddenly we have this new audience. Now, are these folks in a position to have a mortgage tomorrow? Likely no. But if we can continue to nurture them and sort of reinforce the value of our bank or credit union to them, then we would be able to show them that, hey, when you're ready to convert, we've now already built and established that trust, and they'll likely come to us first. So we would think about content consumption in that way as well. And we can look at those patterns to then suggest next best content. So again, we can look at the data coming through on what pieces of content are these folks interacting with the most, so that then we can put that content directly in their path, or we can look to what type of content are they going to next, and then that way we can suggest that content more proactively. Ultimately, that's what personalization is about, right? It's about being more proactive and less reactive and really understanding our customers and their needs and wants and being able to suggest things to them that they may not even know themselves would be helpful. And what that does over time as we continue to fully flesh out these strategies is create that dynamic experience so that as people are on the site with us, they're seeing, exactly the types of content that they're looking for. And that's really going to resonate with them and ultimately push them to take an action and convert with us.
Yeah, one of the things we do at HomeStreet is we actually we change the imagery on our homepage based on someone's where they're coming in to the site from. So, for example, we might have imagery in our Pacific Northwest homepage that is, a little bit more blustery, a little bit more rainy, because that fits with the Pacific Northwest. That's not going to work for our branches down in California nor in Hawaii. So we're able to actually customize that experience, even though it's using images. We're able to do that for people based on where they're coming in from. And it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable, like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a California bank, or this is a Seattle bank, or this is a Hawaii bank. And it's
Yeah,
culturally a better fit. So that's an example of how you can really use personalization
Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great
simply,
example.
very simply, right from the beginning.
Yeah, and it's a great example, Misty, because how many times have we heard customers say or prospects say, "Well, I don't want to, I don't want to go to the big bank," or or they come to us from a big bank who's let them down. So even just those slight tweaks of, having that localized imagery really sets the tone of we're in your backyard, we're local to you, we understand you.
Hmm.
And there's that alignment from the ad creative. I know we've had many display ads over the years that reflect that regionality, and then they come to the
Yes.
site. And like aside from them maybe hearing about you guys, or if they're an entirely new customer, just like that slight alignment, it really goes a long way for that, ultimately making a conversion.
Yeah, one example that we have from another customer who does like heavy equipment for farms and construction, they were able to use imagery to understand what somebody's interest is based on their behavior on the site, if they were more on the farm side or the construction side. And then when they came in the next time, they would see imagery that related to what their interest was. So if they were a farmer, it would be related to farming, for example. So again, that helped them kind of increase their just brand awareness with the right people based on their interest versus just going one way or the other with their imagery. So that definitely makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great example.
And I think this really speaks to starting small and starting out with small personalization efforts that, really can still make an impact. Something as simple as, imagery can really still have an impact and really affect your customers on an emotional level that is, difficult to measure, but still is important. And then also automating more of those touch points with Sitefinity Insight, being able to use Insight to automate some of that content display really can help craft that experience as you continue to build out your personalization strategy. The other great things that we have to look forward to with Insight is predictive audience segments, allowing Insight to do some of that work for us to find those segments, uncover those segments that we may not know existed. For instance, one of the clients I was working with, they were very focused on, new account opening and acquisition within certain demographics, and as well as loans and mortgages. But what Sitefinity Insight was able to do was to show that there was actually quite a lot of strong interest on the website around retirement options. And so we did start to optimize and create a personalization strategy built out for that purpose. And we had never really thought of that or targeting that or buffing up that piece of the content on the site. And then also coming soon, and I know Heather's going to dive a little deeper into this in the upcoming slides, is around using AI to surface that personalized content in real time. So ultimately the roadmap for Insight here is going for, having more basic features and you sort of using it and utilizing it for some of those more initial efforts in strategy, to really fleshing out personalization and a powerful personalization strategy backed by Insight to have that dynamic data-driven experience. I'll turn it over to you, Heather, so you can kind of walk us through what does
Sure.
that look like?
Yeah, so when it comes to delivering, truly personalized experiences, having the right data, as we've all been talking about, is really key. But knowing what to do with that's even more important. So with Sitefinity Insight, you can do things like turn data into actionable strategies that really helps you drive engagement and conversions. So first, it all starts with the clear goals. So as Missy was mentioning, she identified the goal first and started to work backwards from there. So that's what we really want to understand, is what is our end goal. And before personalizing, you really need to define what success looks like. So whether that's increasing engagement or improving conversion rates or driving specific customer actions, Insight helps establish those benchmarks with robust analytics. And then as you launch your campaigns, you can track performance in real time. Insight lets you see how different audience segments are engaging And it even tracks how your personalized content is performing across Sitefinity. So you can go in and look at the reports around the personalizations that you're putting out there and seeing how the personalization or the personalized content is really boosting activity for certain campaigns, for example. And also, speaking of personalization, Insight helps you move beyond just generic messaging. It builds audience segments based on behavior and attributes, and that information follows people, through their life cycle with you. So if you have tagged somebody, they align with a particular persona or an interest. Now, each time they come to the site, you can provide that personalization. It's not just session based, for example. The audience segment based behavior and attributes help you really identify what somebody's interested in, what products they might want to do, what type of campaigns you might want to push towards them. So you can deliver content that speaks directly to each visitor, whether they're known contacts or even anonymous users. In Sitefinity, finally, no personalization strategy is complete without testing. So we talked a little bit about A/B testing. You can measure what works best for your audience segments and continuously optimize your content to improve engagements. And within Sitefinity, the A/B testing has multiple goals. So if you wanted to have a primary goal, a secondary goal, you can set those things up right through A/B testing. And you can even perform A/B testing against specific audience segments that you've created. So you can test within a specific segment as well. So a lot of different things you can do there. And so with Insight, personalization, it's not just guesswork. It's really a data-driven, measurable experience, and it's built to drive real results. So yeah,
I'm going to interject here, Heather, because one of the things that I always say that I love about Insight is that it does the math for you.
yeah,
I am not a
absolutely.
math person. I don't want to have to do the statistics. I don't want to have to figure out the ROI. I don't want to have to think about, if we highlight this piece of content that's performing well to this many people, how many more conversions are we? No, 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 no. That's where I step away. And what's so great about Insight is that the machine learning backbone of it too will help to extrapolate that data. We'll use your data to really help you understand the impact that you can have and do that math for you. And then you can really start to visualize and come together like, hey, we need to increase this product with sales on this product by so much. Now we have some actual data to say, if we take these actions, we can get there.
That's right. Yeah, so we covered the fundamentals of, using data for personalization, but I also want to talk about how Sitefinity Insight takes it to the next level by aligning campaign strategies with platform strengths. So Sitefinity Insight, it really helps you reduce manual effort, leveraging automatic tracking of touch points. It analyzes and optimizes customer interactions. And the biggest part is that I mentioned this before, it unifies data from all different channels. So not only from your web, but from email, from social media campaigns, and other types of channels that your customers are interacting with your brand through. And it helps you create a seamless customer strategy across those channels. So again, you can leverage it to tailor personalized messaging and engagement across channels, ensuring a seamless experience, all based on data that you're collecting from across those channels. So you can really create a true strategy based on data. But personalization, again, it's not just about, reacting to user behavior. It's about predicting what your audience needs before you even ask for it. So with predictive audience segmentation, as you were mentioning before, Christina, Insight identifies patterns of behavior, preferences, customer journey stages, so you can group users more effectively and deliver the right messaging at the right time. So I think that's really kind of the value there. Now, I want to touch on AI a little bit. You mentioned AI. And so I just want to be clear that with the AI capabilities directly with Sitefinity Insight, they're not generative AI like you would think with ChatGPT or OpenAI services, which we're hearing a lot about these days. But instead, these are purpose-built algorithms that are really designed to analyze patterns in your first party data, and it does so securely and privately. So for example, the AI driven content recommender helps suggest relevant content based on a visitor's behavior. The attribution models that we provide, we have an AI driven one that ensures you understand the value of the touch points and which touch points are truly driving conversions, and whether that happened first, intermediately, or last, as far as when the touch point occurred prior to the conversion being the conversion occurring. AI also assists in discovering new audience segments that you may not even be aware of. So again, we provide you insights into different segments of audiences, but we also do that with touch points. So when you go in and you're looking at your conversions, you can actually identify discovered touch points that you might not have been aware are actually attributing to the conversions that you have. And then it's a click of the button, you can start tracking analytics around those touch points as well. So we help you discover things that you might not have even been aware of. So again, you're always having these hypotheses and coming up with strategies that we can help support, but we can also discover things you might not have even thought about. Um, AI performance alerts are also important. So when you set up Sitefinity Insight, we're going to notify you anytime, the system finds any unanticipated performance spikes or drops in your conversion rates or your touch point interactions. So that really helps you detect and investigate positive and negative anomalies that might be occurring. So again, if you have a sudden spike, that's a great sign. What did we do right? What happened? And how can we leverage that again in the future? Or, hey, something went wrong here. We want to avoid that in the future. So again, we send you notifications letting you know when those anomalies are detected. And then we have propensity scoring. So again, that can help you identify who's most likely to convert, so you can really start to focus your marketing efforts there based on information that we're collecting. So all these algorithms are really investigating your data so you don't have to do all that work yourself. We're trying to help you with that. And what's key here is that all of this happens within your own data environment. Insight AI does not share or expose any of your customer data to external AI services. It simply works behind the scenes to surface insights and help you make smarter data-driven decisions. I do want to note that we do have some ChatGPT or OpenAI type of experiences within the content editing. So if you want to go in and have, the content editor with AI help you generate, better content or more personalized content, that's inside the CMS, but we're talking about Insight here. So we do have both of those capabilities, but just want to be clear about the differences. And so what's key here is that all of this happens within, I already mentioned this, all happens in your own data environment. So with these tools, what you can really find is that you're able to fine tune your marketing efforts and really optimize engagement and ensure every touch point is as effective as possible, all while really keeping that customer data secure, under your control. So just wanted to, that's a key thing that I often hear is people are concerned about AI and seeing all the data that you're collecting. So it is secure and it's really based on algorithms to help you discover different things that you might not have been otherwise aware of.
It's awesome. Really is a powerful, powerful platform. And the fact that it's all our own data really is key. So let's talk through some best practices. When we look at these types of initiatives, I think we kind of covered a lot of it. We want to set those clear goals up front and track our performance, really looking at what is the data so that we can make data-driven decisions and also really understand what we're doing right and where we may need to improve. Personalizing content with audience insights and using that data to inform those personalization strategies really is key, as well as testing, iterating, and optimizing. This is not a set it and forget it situation, guys. Now, do
That's
you have
right.
to be on top of this every single day? Probably not, but you're definitely going to want to make sure that we're keeping track and we're having a strong cadence of making sure the campaigns are performing the way that we would like them to perform. And then we want to align those campaign strategies to our strength of our platform. So how can we make sure that we're making the best use out of the platform and getting the most out of our investment there? All right, I want to make sure, I know we're kind of coming up on time and we definitely want to get to a few questions. So I'm going to kind of ask us all to sort of zoom a little bit through our key takeaways here. But I think what we've kind of seen a number of key takeaways, using that data to inform every decision, personalization, driving that higher engagement, which is not news. I think if you've been to any financial brand webinar, you've heard that before. And then understanding that Sitefinity as a DXP really does help you centralize, track, and optimize those campaigns because it is a cross-channel. So we're not looking at just within the website. We're able to bring in that data to get that holistic customer experience and remove those blind spots in data that we've all had challenges with in the past. Ultimately, we're looking for those small incremental improvements to lead to that long-term impact, to really fine-tune what works best for our brand and our audience segments. But that is the future. Dynamic, data-driven personalization really is what's going to make the impact and to set you apart from your competitors, both in customer acquisition and customer loyalty. All right, so we got one last poll for you, Art, because we wouldn't be complete unless we hit you with one more poll. So let's talk through what's your next big marketing push here. What's your focus going to be? Is it going to be around the data piece of it, better tracking and analytics? Are you looking for more personalized content and starting to kind of get your feet wet with personalization? Or maybe it's about that sort of omni-channel presence in that holistic environment, connecting all those tools together. Or simply you're like, you know what? I need conversions and leads. I got a good stack. I just need some guidance around how to use it, or maybe expanding some of your paid media efforts if you've seen some success, or maybe if you've struggled before, or maybe you just want to get started with paid media. That's great too. And then finally, updating or rebuilding your website. I'm thinking about you, that 15% that said that you only had a website that, was kind of a basic CMS. Where are we going next? How can we help you get there? Would love to see the results on this one because we've got such varying options here. Ooh, these are some really good, more personalization. I love that. So y'all are coming to see me at the forum, right? We're going to talk more personalization. We're going to get a little bit deeper. I hope so, because I think we're going to have some really great time at the forum to really talk about that. So if you haven't signed up for Financial Brand Forum, make sure you do that because I want to see you there. And then finally, we're in that increasing conversions and leads. That's a good number 2, absolutely. And connecting marketing tools, right? You hear me say all the time that so many of us have these Frankenstein MarTech stacks where it's like everything's kind of cobbled together. Where can we streamline or connect some of those tools? These are really great results. It's so awesome to have such an engaged audience that's really doing some awesome things out there. So let's get to the Q&A, right? Let's talk through what's next and how can we answer any of your questions. I'm going to see if I can pull up the Q&A here and see what we've got to talk through. All right. We've got some questions here around, does Sitefinity automatically create UTMs? Heather, you're going to test my Sitefinity knowledge now. I'm going to go with a no, but you keep me honest.
That's correct. So it doesn't create them, but as you're in the interface, it gives you different fields that you can enter the different pieces of the UTM parameters within your tracking mechanism. So when you're creating, for instance, a touch point or a conversion, you're able to do that and also create rules based around the different UTM parameters. So again, it's structured appropriately when you go to enter it. So pretty easy to use.
Awesome. That's awesome. We also had a sort of a logistics questions here around the recording and slides. Will they be shared? As far as I know, yes, they will. So you'll be able to, at the very least, watch the recording, which I'm sure will provide you with a lot of entertainment as you drink your coffee tomorrow morning. So I think that will be great. Share it with a friend too. I know we're all out there networking. We have, we all have our mentors. We have our colleagues that we rely on, that we say we bounce ideas off of back and forth. Share this recording with a friend because, they might be really interested in this as well. Maybe they missed it today. And I think if you're getting started in your journey, this is a really great place to start. So make sure to share as well. And then also we do have demos available. So if you want to scan that QR code, that'll take you to, or if you want to kind of just demo Sitefinity or Insight and kind of take a look and see more along those, what the dashboard looks like. One thing I will say about Insight that I really love is it is incredibly easy to use and the dashboards are really easy to read. So if you want to kind of take a peek behind the curtain, schedule a demo with us and we can kind of walk you through what Insight looks like. And we can talk about your own situation and what you're kind of up against and how can we support you, or maybe even just give you some ideas of things that you can try going forward. But don't hesitate to reach out. Lindsay, Misty, and myself, Heather as well, we're all open. Would love to have conversation with you around what you're working on and how we can contribute to your efforts and help you get there. So definitely connect with any of us, schedule that demo. I know we're up on time and I want to be really mindful of that. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who joined. Thank you, Misty, Lindsay, Heather. This was a great session. Thank you to Financial Brand. And I cannot wait to see you guys next time for our next webinar if I don't see you at the forum first. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.